Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Grief Healing Telesummit. Top experts share their best holistic healing methods to transform loss into healing and living again. I'm Chelsea Hansen, your host, founder of With Sympathy Gifts and Keepsakes, as well as the founder of Global Grace, the International Association of Spiritual Grief Healing. Again, we have a very special guest for you today, Tina Games. Tina is an author, creativity coach, a journal writing facilitator, and a life purpose mystic. Tina gently guides women from darkness to light as they create an authentic, filled life with purpose, passion, and creative expression. Today, Tina is going to be talking about life purpose legacy. Love lives on. Tina is sharing a lot of great information with us today, so I suggest just grabbing a pen and pencil because you'll want to take notes on the many tools she is giving us. And just a reminder, as we get towards the end of our telesummit, recordings are available for purchase if you would like to have the information to listen to at another time. So welcome, Tina. It is such a delight to have you on the call.
Thank you, Chelsea. I am just delighted to be here with you today and with everyone who's listening to this beautiful series of dialogues that you are creating. So thank you for the invitation to join you.
Yeah, my pleasure. And we are going to be talking about embracing the legacy of your loved one. But first, tell me, how did you get involved in your line of work? It looks like it was an evolution because you offer so many interesting creative programs to help people in their healing.
You know, my journey began when I was a mom. It was back in 1999 after the birth of my son, and my son was a surprise to my husband and me. We weren't quite planning him as quickly as he arrived. And what had happened at that time, I mean, my husband and I both had very successful, very fast-paced careers. We were living in New York City at the time, and when my pregnancy came, we were thinking, okay, you know, we embraced it, we were excited about it, decided to, you know, go ahead and plan our lives to bring this child into the world. But what I hadn't planned on, Chelsea, was when my son arrived and, you know, we got all set up and everything was going really well, he had just some very minor health issues, but they were enough to really affect his immune system. And so it was recommended to me at that time to take a couple of years off work and just spend some time with him. And when that was proposed to me, I thought, okay, I can do that. So I went ahead and did what I needed to do with my career at the time to kind of put everything on hold and stay with him. But what I wasn't planning on was the fact that such a big piece of who I was lost in that process. And in staying at home with him and doing things that so many moms in the world do for their kids, I enjoyed that for a few weeks, and then it started to hit me. You know, all of a sudden I was lost. I felt really lost, confused, and I fell into depression, you know, just as a result of just being disconnected and kind of lost myself. And it was one of these things that just happened. You know, it's interesting you use the word evolution and things and how life evolves. And sometimes there's like this domino effect, you know, choices we make and one domino falls and it keeps going. And so what happened is I fell into this dark hole and really would look at myself in the mirror and think, you know, I'm a mother, but who am I really? And so I wasn't really connecting with the light of who I was at that time. And there was a lot of guilt around that, a lot of mom's guilt, because I wanted to be the best mom I could be. But inside, I knew that I was feeling like this big hole was inside of me. It was like, you know, we talk a lot about the light from within, and I felt like my own light had gone dark. So what happened during that time, and because my son had some health issues, he didn't sleep through the night until he was 2 years old. And so that meant that I didn't sleep through the night, you know, for 2 years. And so I would be up night after night, you know, getting him settled and then, you know, being back up again 2 or 3 hours later. And what happened, I've always been an avid journal writer, but what happened during that 2-year time period is I would gravitate to this one particular chair in our house because my husband, he was still working his job, so I wanted to give him the time and the space to sleep. And so I would go and sit in this chair and journal write. And sometimes I would just cry my eyes out and I would write. And where this particular chair was, it was positioned by these windows. And every night, whenever the sky was clear or that I could see the moon, I would connect with the moon. And I noticed over a 2-year period that how the moon went in and out of her phases. And I started to identify with my own phases from within. And I noticed that, in the new moon phase, which is the dark moon, how dark I felt. It was like the verge of a new beginning, but I wasn't quite sure what was going on. What was this new beginning about? What was this transition about? And then gradually, the moon moves through her phases, so you'd start to get a little peak of light. And so in my journal writings, I really discovered I was starting to find my light again.
And so when I had my second child, it was a very different experience because I had done so much healing, within myself through journal writing. And so my daughter came along. I had a very different pregnancy. I had a very different experience when she came into our lives. And so shortly after that, I began to do some freelance writing. I have a background in journalism and communications. And so I started to piece some of the things that I had done, in this experience I had with motherhood and healing together. And I began to write articles for publications, for parenting publications, and just different networks that I was a part of. And then right about 2008, a colleague of mine had read through several of my articles, and she said to me, "Tina, you have a book." And I said, "I do?" She said, "Yeah, take a look at your articles, and what you'll see, there's a thread that goes through them." So I took a look at all the articles, and she was right. And I thought, oh, this is really interesting. So how can I weave this together to be a book? And so one day I was in the shower, and I just started thinking back to how all of that writing started. And the image of the moon came into my mind. And I thought, like in an instant, journaling by the moonlight, A Mother's Path to Self-Discovery. And that ended up being the title of my book and the title of a 54-card journaling deck that I created. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful process. And what it taught me was how, we're in this darkness, or what we perceive to be darkness at the time. And a lot of times it's involving grieving of some kind. For me, at that time, I was grieving a life that I once knew and transitioning into another life as a mother where things were changing for me. So there was an element of grief happening for me and transition. So I put my book together and I published it, and I began to create journaling circles and coaching circles and retreats based on this process that I had created, journaling by the moonlight. And so that is how my work began, Chelsea, and this just beautiful, powerful work. And so now, and as I work now with people and primarily with women and still with mothers, I'm always looking at this journey that we take in our lives through these experiences and how many elements of grieving there are, because every time we transition out of something and into something else, there is an element of grieving. So you can be grieving a loved one who's passed on, or you can be grieving a part of your life that you're letting go of. So there's a lot of grieving. So in my work now as a life purpose intuitive, I'm working with people through the mystical elements and through moonlight and through journal writing and helping them piece together the elements of their life story in a way that really makes sense to them and in a way that feels right and in a way that they themselves can see the theme and the thread that's emerging in their own life, because our life purpose and the way that I teach it, it's a thread, it's a theme, it's a way of being in the world. And the doing and the action all comes from that beingness. And so that's how I started this work.
So when you're saying with the common thread, it's like your way of being, your way of doing. So once a person figures out that common thread, that kind of helps them going forward, knowing that that's their pattern, that's their well, I imagine you help them, of course, figure out the authentic pattern. So how does that help them going forward once they have this all figured out? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, once we identify, what our own personal thread is, it really helps us make divinely inspired choices. And I think about, as I'm talking with you right now, Chelsea, I'm very mindful that I've lit a candle. I mean, light is very prevalent in my life, and it's very interesting because this whole journey of transformation for me and with healing started when my light was out. And so I'm mindful now as I step forward into my life and have choices placed in front of me and decide to go left or right or straight or wherever direction I want to go, I'm always asking myself, which of these paths, which of these directions, which of these choices take me closest to my light? And so for me, when I look back at my life, I'm all about the light. I'm all about the light within myself. I'm all about inspiring the light within others. And I'm a light worker. I'm a light bearer. And so it's all about the light for me. And so as I move forward, and when people come to me and they're asking me something, or perhaps I have an invitation like this beautiful one that you've given me here, I'm asking myself, does this help me take my own light forward? And how does this help me help others to shine their light? So once we can get clear on our own journey, and we all have very, very different paths, and once we get clear on what our purpose is, what that theme is, what that energy, that vibration that we carry. Once we're real clear on that, the path just emerges in front of us, and the choices for us become more evident once we're connected to that.
Yeah, that is really a neat analogy, Tina, especially, too, when we're talking about grieving. When you lose a loved one or other transitions you go through, your light does go out. So it's so awesome that you're able to help people learn how to reignite this, but not only reignite it, but then do actions to make sure it keeps going, that you're choosing what's best for you, not what others, instead of what others want, you're choosing to keep, everything going good for you. And I think that's so difficult, whether in the grief journey, parenting, in our daily lives, because I think that's really a lesson that women have to learn, because often we're so trained or accustomed to not guarding our own light. We're worried about everyone else. So thanks for your work in that area, Tina. That's awesome.
Oh, absolutely.
So tell us now, tell us how the journal writing process can help us with the grief journey when we're talking about losing a loved one, but also we're losing a lot of other things, like if you were a wife who lost her husband or vice versa, your world has changed from that as well, all those transitions. So there's so many things that go along with it. Yeah, so tell us a little of what the layman person can do in journal writing to help them through the process.
What I want to do is I want to talk kind of in two different directions as it pertains to journal writing. And the first direction that I wanted to share with everyone is what I would call the healing journal. And this journal is really designed to help you work through your own process. And one of the things I'm very, very mindful of is everyone experiences grieving very, very differently. And I'll talk about this in a little bit, Chelsea, but I do want to touch on it right now. I lost my mother very suddenly in February 2012. And I remember getting the phone call that morning, and I was shocked because there was nothing that I was aware of that was leading up to this. It was an absolute shock. And I remember going through that experience, and it went on, for about a year and a half, because there was a lot to do. My mother wasn't married at the time, and I was the oldest of 4 children. So there was a lot I needed to do to make sure that her estate was taken care of. And we had a beautiful memorial service, and I felt very strongly about her legacy of making sure that was carried on. And so for the healing journal, I just want to invite everyone to really understand that your grieving journey is a very personal one. And however you need to grieve is perfectly fine. I know, Chelsea, that you teach from that energy. And so when you're looking at a healing journal, I invite you to write whatever you need to write, and I'll share a couple of techniques here, and then I'll talk about another form of journal writing for grief. But in the healing journal, I invite all of you to just write what you feel. I remember when my mom passed, the night that she passed, and I had to drive about 5 hours to get to her home, and because I had to jump right in the middle of the doing. But that night when I sat down, to go to bed, and I was in her house, and I pulled out my journal and I wrote her a letter. And this was very powerful for me because I wrote to my mother, because at that time I had a lot of questions. And when I looked back at that piece of journal writing, when I looked back at that entry that I made on the day that she had passed, it was filled with questions. It was nothing but questions. And so I invite you to write in however this news, this experience is coming to you. And there are several different techniques, and one of which is questions. If you've got a lot of questions about this passing that just aren't clear to you, go ahead and write them in your journal, because your journal it's like a therapist, really. It's your own personal therapist. It's a place where you can go. It's your confidant. It's a very safe, very sacred place for you to go and just pour everything you have into it. And just know that there's a divine energy working with you, and that energy will be your loved one. It will be your higher power. It will be whatever energy, your light from within. It's pulling all these energies together. So I invite you into a series of questions. Ask the questions that you have. Just write a letter to your loved one in your journal. And don't worry initially about having answers. Just get the questions out there. And then there's a couple other things that I would invite you to in a healing journal. You can also, there's something, and I'll talk about this too in the other way that I will invite you to journal. There's a journaling technique called the character sketch. And it's like you're taking a writing class, basically, or you're writing a book or something. But it's a character sketch, and I invite you in your journal, when there are a lot of questions that you have and you are really searching for the answers, write a character sketch in the voice of your loved one. And ask yourself, how would my loved one have answered these questions that I have? And so after you've written the questions and you go off, and it might be a day, weeks, and coming back, and then choose to write from the perspective of a character sketch, what would my loved one, how would they answer these questions? And really allow yourself to open up and not censor. One of the big things I teach about journal writing, the number one rule is we do not censor. We just let it all come out. Don't worry about the spelling. Don't worry about the grammar. Don't even worry about if it's making sense or not. Because a lot of times we're channeling this beautiful energy or these messages from our loved ones, and we're channeling through maybe the journal or something else. Sometimes it might be art or something like that, but just allow yourself to channel whatever's coming in. So the character sketch might be, and in the case of my mother, when I wrote all of those questions, a couple weeks later, after we were putting together, actually we had the memorial service, and I went back to my journal and I reread all of the questions that I wrote into the letter that I wrote to my mom. And all of a sudden answers started coming to me, because by that time, 2 weeks later, we had gone through the memorial service. I'd had conversations with people. I was starting to understand a little bit more about maybe what was happening for my mom at the time. And a lot of answers started pouring through me, so I just wrote. And I wrote in the voice of my mother. I wrote, what would my mom want to say to me? How would she want to answer these questions? And I wrote as if my mother was speaking to me through my journal. And so I call that the character sketch technique, because you're writing in the voice of a character. And in this case, it is your loved one. And also in your healing journal, I invite you to really just reflect about what your loved one brought to your life. What was the gift of that particular life in your life? And really think about the gifts and the lessons that you received through your loved one. and just document them in your journal as they come to you. And, and I know that so many of you listening, whether this is the first big loss that you've experienced or maybe a second or a third, you know that things are always coming to us at the least expected times. And so I invite you to pay attention to the synchronicities. Really pay attention when you're out and something will trigger a memory or something will trigger a thought. You may hear a piece of music play or somebody may say something or, there have been times I've been out and I could swear I heard my mom's voice and I'd turn around and it was somebody else. But I would listen to what they were saying because I felt like that message was intended for me. And so I call these synchronicities. And so in your healing journal, be mindful of the synchronicities and write those down. They may feel in the moment they're comforting and maybe they don't make sense, but if you keep record of them and you can go back at a later date and see all of these synchronicities that you've written in your journal, all of a sudden it's the thread that we were talking about. You begin to piece things together and answers become more clear and a beautiful message is coming through. So that's the healing journal. And what I want to focus on, if I could, Chelsea, for a few minutes, I want to talk about the gratitude journal. And
sure.
so,
can I just ask you
go ahead.
couple quick questions about the healing journal? Those are just great ideas for everyone. I think a common question people have is, with the character sketch, you're writing how you think the answer that your mom would give to you, when in actuality, it sounds like you're channeling, of course, what your mom would say to you. But so many people don't know if it's coming from their imagination or is it really a message from the divine. Is there a way you can help people kind of tell the difference or reassure them? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm a strong believer, and this is something that I have really had to come to terms with over the years. We all, every single one of us, are these beautiful channels and messengers. And it does become sometimes unclear, is this something I'm channeling or is this something coming out of my own head? And the answer to that is it could be both or it could be one or the other, and you never, really 100% know. However, what I will say is when you're healing in your journal, when you're really writing this, I'm just going to ask you to just check your mind, the part of you that really wants to analyze, just ask you to check it out at the door when you sit down with your healing journal. Yeah. And don't even bring that question in. I know it's a very, very common question, and I know in the very beginning of really thinking about my mom's passing, I was thinking that. But what I discovered, the more that I continue to work with these questions and with journal writing, the more I let go of asking the question, whose voice is this, mine or yours, the more I just let go of that, the more I started to get all kinds of messages. Because sometimes it's a hybrid, really. It's, in the way that I received this experience, Chelsea, with my mom, and I will talk a little bit more about that experience in just a moment, but what I realized is there was what I would call a hybrid energy happening. And it's like the energy or the wisdom or the messaging from your loved one coming in and really merging with your own, and you become one for a little while. And so there's this writing that feels very synchronized.
Sure.
It's just this beautiful, I'm getting this image right now. It's just a beautiful energy. It's like you're in an embrace. And if you think about when you embrace someone, the energies are joined and the love is one. So I would invite you to think about that particular question, just setting it when you decide to sit down and you're making time for your healing journal. Just make the decision you will leave that question at the door and just be ready to embrace what wants to show up.
Yeah, and what a wonderful experience feeling the person or you have when you do that, to feel that beautiful energy, to that embrace. That's such a nice way to describe it. And I just have one more thought on your personal experience. You suggested that we reflect upon what our loved ones gave us, like the gifts, their lessons. As you did that with your mom, did you notice the gifts and lessons kind of changed, or was it the common thread, like as you would revisit that? Because I was just curious how, if you noticed more gifts later on, or if it was all the same awesome gifts.
Yeah, I will. In fact, let me just share. I'll share the experience that I had, and this is really how I came into understanding about the purpose of my mother's life. And when my mom passed, and I had all these questions, and I wrote them in my journal, and then I began putting together, doing the detail-oriented tasks of putting together my mom's memorial service. And when I began to have dialogues with people, it was an interesting, very, very interesting experience. And I will preface this with saying that I've done a lot of spiritual work, before my mom passed. And so I came into this experience with the gift of spirituality. I was so connected with myself from a spiritual level that I had a very, very different experience of my mother's passing than my siblings did. And I was very mindful of that. Being the oldest of four, I was watching my brother. I have two brothers and a sister. And I was watching. It was almost like I was there and I was a part of this experience, but at the same time, I was outside of it observing. And I was watching the different experiences that everyone was having and the way that they were processing. And what I became very mindful of is that we all are on different journeys, on our spiritual journey at any given moment in time. So when someone passes, depending on where we are on our own spiritual journey, that's going to impact how we process this and how we receive the messages and how we can embrace the legacy of our loved one. So when we were doing the memorial service, and I kind of took on the role of caretaker because that's what my mother was, and I didn't do it intentionally. It's like the embrace I just talked about. It felt very much that my mom was hugging me throughout this experience, and I felt her energy around me. And I took on the role that she would have taken on. And I remember going to so many different funerals and memorial services for family members. And I remember as a young girl watching my mother, and I would always think, wow, she's so together. I would watch how she would take care of people, and she would go around the room and comfort people and listen to people and really be with them. And I took that role when my mom passed. And again, it wasn't intentional. I did not set out to say that this was my role. I just went into this, and I was just so guided. And I felt this embrace with my mom, and I worked the room, so to speak. Again, not intentionally, but I made my way around, and I really listened to people. I really listened to what they had to say about my mom. And there were some stories where people would be in tears because they were so heartbroken, yet what they were sharing to me was exactly the same as the other people who were a bit more collected and who were there really sharing the laughter and everything my mom brought to their life. And so what I noticed was there was a common theme, and I invite all of you, and I'm going to talk about gratitude journaling in just a moment, but I invite all of you, when you're looking at the gifts and the lessons you've received from your loved one, I invite you to ask yourself, what gifts did I receive? What lessons did I receive? And make sure, that you're documenting those in your journal, but also to have really rich conversations with other people and really listen to what they have to say about your loved one and document those in your healing journal. And just receive each dialogue as they want to come, and don't worry about analyzing it or breaking it down, just document. And then after you've had some time to really take in all these conversations, then go back and take a look at the notes you've written and look for the common thread, because there's a theme. There's a thread that always emerges with any of our lives. People receive us in very similar vibrations. Like we all very naturally carry around an energy and a vibration, and people receive that from us. And so when I was going around at the memorial service and I was speaking with everyone, people who had known my mother for years, people who had just known her for a couple of years, it was just interesting whether they were older or younger, it really didn't matter. I kept hearing the same words. Your mother was so nurturing. Your mother was such a good listener. Your mother would always embrace me. Your mother was like a second mother to me. I didn't have a mother. Your mother was my mother. Your mother was so good at taking care of people. And I kept hearing these same words all around the room. And as people stood up and spoke at my mother's service, again, very similar messaging. And it became clear to me as I listened to all of these stories, and I thought back to my own experience growing up with my mom and watching her as a little girl and knowing how she was with my kids, the same energies were always prevalent. And I had concluded that my mother's life purpose was one of mothering. And she mothered everyone. And she mothered everyone in the ways that we always think of when we think of a good mom. You know, good moms always nurture. They always know the right things to say at the right time. They know when to give a hug. They know the art of embracing. And so what was very present for me at this memorial service was the warmth of my mother's embrace as we went around together embracing everyone else. And so I would ask everyone, as you think about the gifts you received, really think about the words you would use to describe the gifts. You know, thinking about the experiences, and then writing them down, and then going back and looking for a common thread, because that really helps you understand the life purpose of your loved one, and it really helps you see their legacy. It's really beautiful.
So, do you think that just brings you comfort that you knew what your mom's life purpose legacy was, or now you're able to bring forth some of her same gifts and characteristics that she had? So it's almost like you're bringing forward part of her legacy. Is that how you would describe it?
Yeah, and I would actually. You know, it's interesting with the word comforting, because for me, because my mother passed away very suddenly, and I had all these questions, and there, you know, it wasn't like I had time to really think about, you know, this and to really make some peace with the fact that it might happen. It gave me comfort. You know, it really helped me feel very peaceful. And Chelsea, you always talk about love lives on. I truly felt in that room at the memorial service that love lived on. It was living on. It was living on through me. It was living on through the people that I was having conversations with. My mother had a preschool for over 35 years, and some of the kids that had been with my mom were there. You know, there were a lot of, some of them were adults, some of them were in high school, some of them were still little, and it didn't matter who I was speaking with. I was getting those same messages about what my mom meant to them. And it was very comforting to me to know that my mom lived a rich life. And even leaving so suddenly, I felt like her purpose had been served. And I think that's a question when we have a loved one that leaves very suddenly and we haven't had any time at all to prepare. I think the question that comes to mind, and it did for me, and I hear this a lot from other people, was my loved one's purpose served? They left so suddenly. How do I know their purpose was served? And it was. And I just will invite everyone to really embrace the thought that everything is in divine timing. And so that was a question that was weighing heavily on my mind. Was my mom's purpose served? And in having these dialogues with people, I really had this very overwhelming warmth and feeling that, yes, my mother's purpose had been served. I was watching the ripple effect of her purpose.
Yeah, that's, I'm in tears, Tina, as you're telling this story.
Yeah.
I wish, just one more comment, I wish everyone could learn how to experience the loss, the process that you went through, because that does give you such comfort, as we said. So I'm so glad you're sharing your experience of how you processed it and realizing your mom's gifts, so that'll give other people on the call an idea of how they can go through the same process, as well as the grief professionals, how they can suggest that to their clients. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that.
You're so welcome. Thank you. May I'm feeling guided to just share a little bit of a guided visualization with everyone to help them perhaps get a connection. Because as I'm sharing this story, let me just take just a couple of minutes here and just invite all of you into the space of gratitude. And this is the other journal that I wanted to suggest to everyone. It's what I would call a gratitude healing journal. So there's really two different ways to keep a healing journal. One is a healing journal where you're really putting everything in there. You're putting your anger, you're putting your questions, you're putting everything in there. But a gratitude healing journal is all about really embracing the legacy. It's all about embracing the gifts. It's all about just being grateful for this life that was well lived. So I'm going to invite everyone just right now, just take a deep breath. And let's just begin by closing our eyes. And I just invite you, to take in just a really, really, really deep breath. And as you're breathing in, I want you to feel yourself breathing in the light of your loved one. And as you're breathing in, allow this light to travel through your entire being. And feel yourself getting warm from this light. Feel this light wrapping you like a blanket. Feel this light surrounding you with love. And as you're continuing to breathe deeply, I want you to just allow yourself to drift into an energy of gratitude for everything your loved one gave you while alive on this planet. And allow an image or an experience to come to mind. One that triggers a smile, a laugh, or a sense of security. Breathing very deeply, just allow this image or experience to come into your mind. And as it settles into your being, take a moment to ponder the gift you received from your loved one. Allow yourself to just feel the energy and the presence of their light. Perhaps it was a lesson learned, or maybe it was a big hug when you needed one, or maybe it was just a general sense of security. Whatever the gift may be, allow yourself to fully receive it in this moment. Just feel yourself opening up your arms, your heart, and receiving this beautiful gift from your loved one. And take a moment quietly in your mind, or just quietly with your breath, to say thank you to your loved one for this beautiful gift that only they could give to you. And now take a deep breath in, receiving the light of this gift. And slowly exhale your gift of gratitude. And just take your arms and just wrap them around yourself, breathing in this beautiful gift. Take one more deep breath in. And exhale slowly. And gently open your eyes. And if you have a journal or notepad handy, take a moment to jot down any thoughts that came to your mind during this connection with your loved one. And as you're taking notes and writing down what you received, just know that there will be many more moments like this, the gratitude journal writing. I'll give you just a moment to write that down. And it's through gratitude journal writing that we fully begin to understand the legacy of our loved ones, that we really begin to understand the gifts and the purpose of their life on this planet. And we really begin to see the ripple effect of what they have created here on this planet, not only with us, but to so many others. And this is what I saw with my mom. And I was so grateful to be at the memorial service in the role that I was in organizing and putting all that together, and in the role that my mother and I together were in, embracing people. I was able to receive her gifts, and I truly felt that I was one with my mom. And Chelsea, with your permission, could I just talk a little bit about gratitude journal writing?
Oh, sure, absolutely. And then, too, I wonder if we should let everyone know about the generous free gift that you're offering as well.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I would.
Yeah, because now I think everyone's probably like, oh, my God, I want to start journaling. So.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you, and I'm going to talk a little bit more here about gratitude journaling and really help you see the gifts of it and how it helps with the healing process. And if you are really, really connecting with what you're hearing, I want to just invite you to go to, and I've got two websites, but I want you to go to one of them. It's journalingbythemoonlight.com, journalingbythemoonlight.com. And at the top, you'll see a tab bar that says Journal Writing. And if you click on that, it'll drop down and you'll see Gratitude Journaling. And if you click on that, you'll see that I have a 30-day e-course. It's all about gratitude journaling, and it tells you what it is, how it can support you, the benefits of it. And I also give you 21 days of journal writing prompts that are designed to really help you see the good in your life. And it's a beautiful thing, and there's inspirational author and speaker Wayne Dyer says this: when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So gratitude journal writing is all about coming at anything from a different perspective. So it's the glass half full and the glass half empty. And I know that when we're grieving, there's so much pain and sadness that's in the grieving process. But equally, what I really want to shed some light on for you today, equally, there's just as much in the light-filled part of grieving, where we really can see the light of this life that has transitioned on, where we can really step into this lighter energy and really receive the gifts of our loved one. And this is what gratitude journal writing is about. And so what I want to invite all of you, I would love to give, for the first 3 people who just send me a quick email after hearing our dialogue today, just send me a quick email to moonlightmusemedia@gmail.com, and that's moonlightmusemedia@gmail.com. And the first 3 people that send me just a quick note and say, I heard you with Chelsea, I will give you a special link where you can take my 30-day gratitude journal writing course for free, just with my compliments. So the first 3 people, moonlightmusemedia@gmail.com, and I'll send you a special link with my compliments, and you can take my 30-day gratitude journal writing course. Now, I do want to say that it was originally written for moms, and there's just a couple of mom references in there, but primarily it's really for anyone who really wants to see the light in their own life, who really wants to connect with what is really great about your life, And by going through this course, not only are you seeing the gifts of your own light, it's really going to help you shed light on the life of your loved one and help you see this beautiful legacy of your loved one and really embrace it on a different level. So let me just explain about gratitude journal writing. And gratitude journal writing is it's about showing gratitude, really. And so I'm going to invite you into a second way to keep up with your thoughts around losing your loved one and grieving through what I call a gratitude healing journal. And so let me just invite you to first pick out the most beautiful journal that you can find, one that really, when you look at it and you hold it, it feels like the energy of your loved one. And I want you to really think about, when you think about your loved one and the life that they led and what they meant to you, what energy, how would you describe that energy? You know, think about, maybe it comes in a color, maybe there's an image, you know, maybe there's something that comes to your mind when you think about the energy of that loved one. And with that energy in mind, I would love to invite you to go out and find a special journal that really helps you connect with that energy. And once you have that journal, I want to invite you into a dedication. So on the first, as soon as you open the book, there's some space right there, you know, right when you open the book. And I would love for you to write a dedication. And dedicate your gratitude healing journal to the legacy of your loved one. And just write whatever beautiful words come to mind when you think about the legacy. When you think about everything your loved one meant to you, just write a beautiful dedication. It's like dedicating a book or dedicating a song or dedicating anything that you might want to dedicate to this person. Just write a dedication and sign your name and make sure you date it. And in this journal, gratitude journal writing, it's all about honoring the light. It's all about recognizing the gifts. It's all about recognizing the lessons. So in this journal, you'll be writing about anything that comes to mind. And here are a few questions that you can kind of start with. You know, what were the gifts? If I ask you, and I'll use myself as an example. If I were to ask myself, what gifts did I receive from my mom? What was the biggest gift that she gave me? And that might be a question I would start with. And I might write, Mom, I want to thank you for the gift of blank. This gift helped me to blank. This gift helped me raise my family in this way. And you can describe it. You can say, with this gift that you gave to me, I was able to blank. So I invite you into an energy of really thinking about the gifts you received from this loved one. And then another way that you could journal, I remember when, blank, and write about experiences that triggers laughter, that triggers a smile, that triggers a feeling of gratitude. And also in this healing journal, I invite you into dialogues with other people who loved your loved one just as much as you, and I invite you into conversation with them, asking them, what did our loved one give to you? What do you most remember about our loved one? What are you most thankful for? What gifts did they give to you? And have a dialogue with people. And then you can go back to your gratitude healing journal and you could write, my Aunt Evelyn said that blank. My Uncle Wayne shared with me today that you gave him the gift of blank. My cousin Nancy said she remembered when blank. Our family friend Rob remembers how you gave him a big hug and said these words to him. And so I invite you to use this journal to show your gratitude, not only through you, but through others. And I also invite you in this journal to collect any images or any little mementos that you have that represent your loved one. You can tuck them inside, or maybe you can tape them or glue them into the journal and maybe write a little bit about what that is. So it becomes a journal / maybe scrapbook, because there is such a thing called scrapbook journal writing. And this gratitude journal is for you whenever you're feeling a little low. And we're all going to have sad days. I mean, that's part of the grieving process. You know, there will be days that something will trigger you and you'll be feeling a little sad. And you might feel yourself really missing your loved one. And when this happens, you can go to your gratitude healing journal and begin to read some of what you've written, some of what you've shared. And what you're going to feel is it's going to lift you up. It's going to bring you back into the light. And there are a lot of benefits of gratitude journal writing. I mean, I talked earlier about it really helps you shift the mindset from glass half empty to glass half full. But I also want to bring to your awareness that it triggers what we call the law of attraction. And for those of you that may not be as familiar with law of attraction, basically what that means is what we put out is what we get back. So if we're putting off the vibration of light, that's what we will receive. So by gratitude journal writing, when we're putting out an energy that says, I want to see the gifts of this, I want to see the gifts of your life, I really want to celebrate the gifts, I want to embrace your light, then we're going to begin to see more of that. And again, it's perfectly normal and very natural for us to dip into sadness. And this gratitude healing journal will help you in those moments. It'll help lift you. So there are a lot of benefits to this particular journal. And I also mentioned earlier the character sketch journaling technique. So let me also pull it into the gratitude journal. You can invite your loved one to speak to you through your own words about what they brought to your life. Like I could say to my mom, Mom, what do you think was the biggest gift you gave to me? What do you think it was? And allow my mom to speak. We might have the same thing and we might have something different. And I know the question was raised earlier, how do we know if we're speaking or they're speaking? Let's just not even question. Let's just let whatever wants to come in, and trust that it is what it is. And the other thing a couple other things I want to, just journaling techniques that I want to introduce around gratitude journaling is there's a technique, it's in the journaling world, we call it the clustering technique, but in the business world, we call it mind mapping. So in your journal, you would write a circle and put gifts I received from, and I'll use myself as an example. So gifts I received from my mom. And then I would draw a line in another circle, and I might write mothering, I would draw a line and write in another circle listening. My mom was a great listener. And then you can just begin to map out all of these gifts that you received, and all of a sudden you've got this beautiful visual map. And then you can begin to cluster off of those pieces, like the gift of listening. My mom was a great listener, so she gave me the gift of listening, so I would write listening off in this particular circle. And then I would ask myself, what did being a good listener, what does being a good listener help me to do? And then I would draw lines off of that circle and begin to write all the ways that great listening shows up in my life and how it benefits me. And I would do that with all of these gifts, and the map would get, bigger and bigger, and it may carry over into other pages. But the gift of this is to allow you to see how big your loved one's ripple is in the world. Because each and every one of us create ripples every single day. Just by being who we are, by showing up as we are, our mere presence creates a ripple effect. The actions we take, we're always putting ripples out into the world. When I think of gratitude journal writing, I'm always thinking about the film A Wonderful Life that shows right around the holidays. And for those of you that are familiar with that film, the main character makes a decision that, why am I even living? I'm just doing all these things. Nothing's working out. I just want to take myself out. And then the angel comes in and gives this character the gift of seeing just how impactful he is in the lives of so many people. And so the gift of the Gratitude Healing Journal gives us the gift of really seeing that our loved one is still alive and very well and living, not only through us, but through the lives of so many others. Love lives on. And I invite you to do that particular technique, particularly when you're feeling a little sad, because you're going to see just how big the ripple is of your loved one. It's just going to bring light and a smile to your face when you see how huge this ripple is and how much it's still living on. And I also want to just invite you to, in your journal, to create, or you could do this separately, but many of you have probably heard about vision boards. I invite you, as you're going through your healing process, to just pick images and things that remind you of your loved one and begin to collect them, whether they're in your journal or whether they're on a separate vision board. But to be able to give yourself the gift of images that really, when you look at them or you touch them, you feel the energy of your loved one. And as a special gift to all of you, if you go to my website, themoonlightmuse.com, you'll see that I offer a beautiful report. It's called Creating a New Moon Vision Board. It's a beautiful report, and if you just put your name and email address, you can get a copy of the special report. And I talk about 2 different ways of creating a vision board. And the 2 different ways are, you can be very, very specific about what you want to create in this vision, which might be, I want to remember the gifts of my loved one, and it will be very specific. Or you can be open and allowing. In the open and allowing vision board, it means that you're collecting images or little tokens or things like that without really a clear intention other than you just want to remember. And an open and allowing vision board creates the space. It's like leaving an open door for all of these synchronicities and all of these beautifully timed, they're all just divinely timed, yet unexpected ways that we can remember our loved one. It's like just being out, say, in nature one day, and you happen to walk across a feather, and you look down and you think, oh my gosh, that's a bluebird feather, and my mother loved bluebirds. So I'm going to pick that up because my mother's here with me, and I'm going to take it back with me and put it in my gratitude healing journal, or I'm going to put it on my vision board. And when you begin to do this, you're going to notice more and more and more synchronicities and messages from your loved one because they're communicating with you still. So that is the gift of a gratitude healing journal. And I want to just touch quickly on a couple other things before we wrap up. And because this is a question that came up early on in the call, and it's about life purpose. And I teach a lot about life purpose legacy, what I call life purpose legacy. So a question that I get a lot is, how does life purpose impact one's legacy? And we talked a lot about that earlier, about the thread and really paying attention and talking to different people about what they remember about your loved one, what gifts they received. And we begin to tie the threads together, and all of a sudden we see a theme. And so how does life purpose impact one's legacy? Legacy is in the ripple. When we begin to look at the ripple effect of our loved one, that is the legacy. It was very much alive when your loved one was on the planet, and it's still very much alive now. The ripple carries on, allowing love to live on. So notice how the ripple of your loved one is still present today within you and around you. This is what I call the life purpose legacy. And being grateful for this gift will help you heal each and every day. And that is the beauty of the Gratitude Healing Journal. It allows you to not only understand the life purpose of your loved one, it helps you understand the life purpose legacy of your loved one. And it helps you to see the ripple effect that's going on. Even as we speak right now in this call, the legacy is continuing to go on. Your loved one is still very much alive and present within you, around you. Love does live on.
Tina, that is wonderful. Look at how much the story of your mom is helping the thousands of people on the call. And so, yeah, and thanks, too, for all the wonderful tools that you gave us with the examples of your example of your mom and how we can apply them. So I'm all excited now to go make my mind mapping board, or because in my office I do have a big vision board. So isn't that wonderful to see the legacy vision of the loved one that you're remembering, of their legacy? And I also want to mention, Tina gave us so much great information that we do have the recordings available if you want to purchase an actual copy of the recording, so you have it to listen to the guided imagery later or to listen to some of the tools that Tina provided. And for the guided imagery that you gave us, Tina, do you suggest we do that every time we're going into the journaling process, or just as we're even thinking about our loved one, or what's the best way to use the guided imagery that you shared with us?
Yeah, I would be, in fact, thank you for asking. I will send you a copy of that, Chelsea, and you can certainly share it with everyone so that everybody has that with them. But it can go either way, actually. And I think when we sit down and journal write, it's always wonderful to set intentions. And whenever I teach journal writing or I lead a workshop or a retreat, I'm always inviting people to create sacred space. And so what I will say to everyone is really be mindful of what you need when you want to sit down and really connect with your loved one. What do you need? For me, I'm always lighting a candle. I'm always putting myself near a window. I have, fresh flowers near me quite often whenever I'm connecting in my journal or speaking with my mom or connecting even with my inner light. So really allow yourself to think about, what do I need? And to start out with, I think this particular intention, this visualization will help because it really kind of puts you into that sacred energy. So to answer your question, I say yes. I think it's a wonderful tool to really set the intention, but it's not necessary each and every time.
Okay. And then, too, I should mention, you gave us so much great information, and I'm thinking more people probably are interested in your one-on-one services as well. So I noticed on your website you have a link where you can have like a complimentary call with you. Is that just like a 15-minute call? I'm just curious for people who want to dive more into journal writing, like what is the next step they might take?
Yes, absolutely. On my websites, and again, I do have two websites. Journalingbythemoonlight.com is primarily for work that I do exclusively with mothers, and then I also have themoonlightmuse.com for just highly creative, highly spiritual people. So either one, you can go to either site, and you will see on the right side of the website there is where you can schedule a complimentary conversation with me, and it is 15 minutes, and we'll connect. It just gives us an opportunity for us to connect over the phone and for us to really understand, what your intentions are, where you are in your healing process, where you could use additional support. And I will very much personalize that dialogue so that I'm being able to give you something that you can take away and use right away. And I do have several different programs, and I will recommend what I intuitively feel might be the best next step for you. So please do take advantage of that. It's 15 minutes, and you can go on, and you'll see the button where you can schedule, and you can just go. It takes you right to my online calendar, and just pick a day and time that works for you, and it'll give you the telephone number to call me at the designated time, and we'll just connect and see where you are in your healing process and how I might be of service to you.
Yeah, and Tina, thanks, too, that you can offer that to people on our call, because you have so much insight and wisdom that I think even though 15 minutes sounds short, you can really help a person in 15 minutes because you just have so many gifts and different abilities. And then, too, I wanted to remind everyone, for this call, it also will be available for another 48 hours, so you can listen to it again if you'd like to, because I know, like I said, we have lots of info. And then, too, as I mentioned, the recordings are available. If you did want to have them for later use, you can use them as much as you want. And, Tina, any last words of wisdom you want to give to us? It was just such a pleasure to have you on the call.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me. And I really do want to just say love does live on. And Chelsea, I love so much that you really teach from that space, because in the work that I have done for the past, a decade now, I really do honestly believe, and I can tell you from personal experience, love does live on. It lives on every single day. It lives on through the legacy, and it's happening within us and around us every single day. So just be very mindful. When you're in those sad moments and you really think you've lost this person, you really haven't. You really haven't. The legacy lives on, and it's there all over the place. So I just really want to leave you with that thought that love does live on in the ripple effect.
Thank you, Tina. That is a wonderful message to end our talk this evening. Thanks again, Tina.
Thank you, Chelsea. Good day, everyone.